Cade stood in front of the alien council with a calm face. He was the only human in a room full of tall, strange beings with glowing eyes and cold smiles. They were generals from the Galactic Alliance, and they had called this meeting just for him. "You are brave, human," one of them said with a fake smile. "We have a special mission only someone like you can complete." Cade nodded. But deep inside, he knew something was wrong. The air in the room felt heavy, like something dangerous was hiding behind their words. "We are sending you to planet Zura 9, another general said, pointing to a red dot on the screen. "It is wild and uncharted, full of deadly creatures. But we want peace with that world." Cade raised an eyebrow. "No one's been there before?" The general looked at him and said, "No one has returned alive." There was silence, then quiet laughter from the back of the room. It wasn't friendly. "You want me to die," Cade said calmly. One of the generals stepped forward. "We want you to survive if you can." Cade smiled a little. "All right, I'll pack my toothbrush." They gave him no armor, no gun, only a basic knife and a tracking bracelet. "Just to see how long you last," one of them whispered as he entered the drop pod. The door slammed shut, the countdown started, and then boom. The pod shot into space like a bullet. It shook hard as it entered the thick, stormy atmosphere of Zura 9. Rain smashed against the glass. Lightning flashed outside, then crash. The pod landed deep inside a dark jungle, trees snapping and smoke rising. Cade kicked open the door and rolled out, coughing from the heat and smoke. He was alive, but just barely. The jungle around him was like nothing he had ever seen. Giant glowing mushrooms pulsed with light, and vines moved like snakes. The air was hot, wet, and smelled like blood and fire. Cade stood up and took a slow breath. He looked at the tracker on his wrist. No signal, of course. He was truly alone. He started walking, using his knife to cut through thick plants. Every step made a squish sound in the mud. Strange bird-like screams echoed in the distance, but the worst part, there were no signs of humans, no old wrecks, no bones, just fresh tracks, giant tracks. Something big lived here, and it wasn't hiding. The footprints were deep, with sharp claw marks and long strides. He knelt to study them, then froze. A low growl came from behind him. Cade turned slowly, knife ready, nothing there. But he could feel it. He was being watched. He moved faster now, his body on high alert. Trees bent strangely overhead like a giant hand reaching down. The growls came again, this time closer, then silence. Cade found a rock ledge and climbed it to rest. From up there, he could see more of the jungle, and something moved fast, large. Black, through the trees. The creature didn't show itself. Not yet. Night came quickly, and with it, fear. Cade built a small fire and sat close to it. He hadn't eaten all day, and his body was already sore. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard footsteps. Not wild stomps, but slow, careful steps. The beast was stalking him. Still, it didn't attack. It waited. At dawn, Cade found claw marks on a tree near his fire. Fresh, deep and close. He was being tested, hunted maybe, or judged. He walked deeper into the jungle. Following a river, he hoped to find food or water or maybe something left by other survivors. But there was nothing, only more claw marks, more broken trees. More silence. Then, at midday, it finally showed itself. The beast was massive, twice as tall as a man, with thick black fur, shining claws, and bone armor growing from its shoulders. Its eyes were red, glowing softly like burning coals. It didn't charge. It stood still, watching him. Cade didn't move either. He held his knife low, ready but not aggressive. The beast growled, deep and slow. Then it took one step forward. Cade stepped back, heart pounding. But the creature didn't attack. It simply sniffed the air, then turned and disappeared into the trees. Cade stood alone again, confused, breathing hard. Why didn't it kill him? Why did it walk away? He looked down at the ground where it stood. Its tracks were next to his now, side by side. That was not a warning. That was something else. Something had started between them. Something strange, dangerous, and maybe not so hostile. Cade whispered to himself. This mission was supposed to kill me. He looked into the dark trees. But I think it just gave me a challenge. Cade woke up with his back against a tree, his knife still in his hand. The fire had burned out hours ago, leaving only smoke and ashes. His eyes scanned the area, heart still racing from the night before. The beast hadn't returned, but its presence still lingered. Like the jungle itself remembered what had happened. The air was thick with moisture, making it hard to breathe. Even the trees seemed to lean closer, as if they were listening, watching. Cade stood slowly, stretching his aching legs. Every muscle in his body protested, but he forced himself to move. He followed the river again, keeping his knife low and his eyes sharp. The jungle was louder today. Strange bird calls echoed from above, but he never saw any birds. Instead, he noticed something else: plants moving without wind, leaves shaking when there was no breeze, vines curling like fingers, waiting to grab. Reached a clearing with sunlight pouring down through the thick branches. At first it looked peaceful, even beautiful. But something was wrong. There were no insects, no animals, no sounds, and in the center, a pile of bones, white, clean, and cracked. Cade crouched and picked up a broken skull. Not human, but humanoid. Sharp teeth, 4 eye sockets, cracked. Open in the middle. Something had crushed it. Not chewed, just crushed. He placed the skull back and stood up slowly. A low clicking sound reached his ears. Like claws tapping on rock. It was getting closer. He backed up toward a large tree and climbed quickly. The sound came from the bushes now, slow and steady, then nothing. Cade held his breath, frozen in the leaves. The jungle held its breath too. Then he saw it. A different creature from last night, smaller, but quicker, faster looking. With green skin and no eyes, its face opened sideways, revealing rows of thin teeth. It sniffed the ground where he had walked. Cade gripped the branch tighter. He knew one wrong sound would bring it straight to him. But suddenly, the creature hissed and backed away. It turned and ran back into the trees, vanishing without a trace. Cade didn't move for several minutes. When he finally climbed down, he felt something new, not just fear, but curiosity. The jungle was alive, more than alive. It was reacting to him, adapting, learning, and something or someone was keeping him alive. He moved fast now, keeping close to the river, but not too close. He noticed traps, not made by nature, but by something intelligent. Rocks balanced to fall, vines twisted to trip, pits covered in leaves. He avoided them all. His mind raced. Was the beast trying to keep others away from him? Or was it leading him somewhere? He stopped at a small waterfall to drink, splashing cold water on his face. Then he saw the claw mark again, this time on a flat rock, deep and sharp, fresh. It was a symbol, not a warning. A curve with 3 straight slashes. It looked like a mark left on purpose, like a message. Cade whispered, "Are you watching me?" No answer, only the rustling leaves, but he felt it again, that gaze from the shadows. Not hunting, not angry, just present. As the sun began to fall, he built a better fire this time. Higher flames, more light. He placed sharp sticks around the camp and used wet leaves to make smoke. That night, he heard the jungle speak in strange ways. Not voices, but sounds, rhythmic shaking, sudden stillness, quiet roars in the far distance. It was alive in a way he didn't understand yet. Then once again, the red eyes returned, across the fire, just beyond the trees, watching, not moving. He knew it was the same beast from before. Cade didn't grab his knife. He sat quietly, raising both hands slowly to show peace. He spoke softly. "You're following me. You could have killed me. Why didn't you?" The beast growled low, not threatening, more like a voice. Then it stepped forward just enough to let the light touch its face. One eye was scarred, but the other glowed bright. It had an old wound on its shoulder deep, but healed. It stared at Cade, then at the fire, then back at him. Then it did something strange. It sat, just like a dog guarding a camp, silent, alert. calm. Cade didn't speak again. He just stared back. Confused but no longer afraid, the fire cracked softly between them. Two living things, once enemies, now sharing the same space. Something had changed, not just in the jungle, but in both of them, and Cade knew. This beast was not just watching him, it was protecting him. The morning came slow and silent. Cade blinked awake, his back stiff and cold from the ground. The fire had died again, but the beast was still there, sitting like a statue, eyes half closed, as if it had watched him sleep all night. Cade sat up slowly, his movements calm. He didn't want to startle the creature. He wasn't sure if he was a guest or just prey not eaten yet. The beast tilted its head as if studying him. Its ears twitched, nose lifted. It sniffed the air between them, then made a soft sound in its throat. Not a growl, something softer. Cade reached toward his bag, slow and careful. He pulled out a small dried meat strip, the only food he had left. He placed it on a flat stone and slid it toward the beast. The creature stared at it for a long time. Then, with shocking grace, it stepped forward and picked up the food. With its sharp teeth, it didn't gulp it down. It chewed slowly, eyes never leaving Cade's face. "Right," Cade whispered. "So we're doing this now." They sat like that for almost an hour. No words, no sudden moves, only quiet understanding. Then the beast stood and turned. It looked over its shoulder once, then started walking. Cade stood too. He hesitated, then followed, step by step. Deeper into the jungle, the beast moved like it owned the forest. No branch touched it, no trap caught it. Even the plants seemed to part for it, and somehow, they did the same for Cade now. He followed carefully, heart pounding. He didn't know where they were going, but something in his gut told him this was important. The air around them changed. It became cooler, darker. The sounds of the jungle faded behind them until there was only silence. Then, the trees opened up, and Cade stepped into a hidden valley. It was beautiful, a pool of water glowing blue. Surrounded by crystal rocks, strange flowers grew on the edges, pulsing with light. And in the center bones, piles of them, from different species, some old, some fresh, but placed in a careful ring, not random. The beast walked into the ring and sat in the middle. It looked at Cade again, waiting. Cade didn't step inside the bone circle. He stayed just outside, watching, thinking. This wasn't just a hunting ground. It was a ritual space sacred. "You brought me here for a reason," he whispered. The beast growled low. Deep in its chest, it looked at the bones, then at Cade. Then pointed its nose to a rock. Cade moved slowly toward the rock, on its surface marks. Not random scratches, symbols, like a language carved in stone. Some even looked human. His eyes widened. "What is this?" He ran his fingers over the stone, feeling the deep cuts. There were handprints burned into the surface. Large ones, small ones, and one about his size. He placed his palm over it, and the stone glowed faintly. The beast stood suddenly, its muscles tense, but not with anger, with anticipation. Cade pulled his hand back, heart racing. Then the beast stepped forward, slowly, carefully, and lowered its head right in front of him. Cade froze. The creature stayed still, head bowed, waiting. He understood. It was showing respect or asking for trust. Cade reached out and touched its head. The moment he did, the ground around them shimmered, the glowing pool brightened, and the jungle responded. Birds sang again in the distance. Wind returned, carrying the smell of flowers and fresh earth. The silence broke, not with noise, but with life. The beast looked up at him and made that soft sound again, almost like a purr. Then it nudged his hand gently. Cade stepped back, shocked. "Are you choosing me?" The creature turned and walked back out of the valley. It looked over its shoulder, eyes glowing with something new. Recognition. Cade followed, this time without hesitation. He felt different now. Not stronger, not faster, but seen. Back through the jungle they went, and this time the path moved for him too. Even the plants knew. He wasn't just a lost human anymore. He was something else chosen. As they reached a wide hilltop, Cade looked back at the path they took, and for the first time he saw the truth. This jungle didn't want him dead. It was testing him, and the beast? It wasn't just a predator, it was the key, and now it was his. Cade named it Bones, not because it was skinny, but because of the armor growing from its back, sharp, pale, and strong like bones pulled from ancient monsters. It didn't seem to mind the name. Each day, Cade and Bones traveled deeper into the jungle. Each night, they camped side by side. And something strange happened. The beast, once a wild hunter, began to listen. When Cade pointed, it looked. When he held up his hand, it stopped. When he whispered a word, it seemed to understand. Cade didn't speak much, but when he did, he spoke gently, and the beast always watched his lips, as if trying to learn. The first time Cade said stay, and Bones actually stayed, Cade smiled. Not bad for a giant killing machine, he muttered. Bones tilted its head like it was proud. They hunted together now. Not just to survive, but as a team. Cade would scout ahead, find tracks, and Bones would silently stalk their prey. It brought him fresh meat every day, placing it near the fire like a gift. It never ate first, it waited. That respect changed everything. Cade no longer felt like a stranger in the jungle. He belonged now. One night, while sitting by the fire, Cade pulled out his stick and drew shapes in the dirt. Bones watched, eyes glowing. Cade drew a star, a tree, and then a human figure. He tapped it and said, "Me." Then he drew a second shape, tall, sharp back, claws, glowing eyes. He tapped it and said, "Bones." The beast growled softly, then reached out with one claw and drew a third shape, bigger, fiercer, standing behind both. It looked like a warning, another creature. Cade's face turned serious. "You're telling me we're not alone?" Bones nodded once, then looked toward the east, where the jungle grew darker, thicker, where even Bones had not gone yet. Suddenly, the trees rustled nearby. Cade jumped up, knife ready. Bones leapt to his side, growling low. But instead of a predator, it was a drone. Small, black and humming, with a red blinking eye. Cade cursed under his breath. "They're watching us." Bones leapt and smashed the drone to pieces in one strike. Its pieces sparked and smoked in the dirt. Cade knew what it meant. The alien council hadn't forgotten about him. They were still tracking him, still expecting him to die. But what they didn't expect was that he'd tamed the untamable, that he'd become one with a beast even they feared. Across the stars, on a floating warship, the alien generals stared at their screens. "He's alive?" One hissed, another shouted, "That's not possible. The beast of 09 kills everything it sees." But the footage was clear. Cade was feeding it, talking to it, sitting beside it like a friend. How is this human still alive? "Not just alive," one officer said quietly. "He's bonding with it." Silence fell in the control room. Then came a single chilling sentence. "We made a mistake, back on the planet." Cade cleaned his knife and looked at Bones. He knew something was coming, not from the jungle but from above. The aliens would not stay quiet. They'd return, not to check on him, but to erase their shame. That night, as firelight danced on leaves, Bones curled beside him. Closer than before, its breathing was calm, its massive body rising and falling like a slow wave. Cade reached out and touched its thick fur. "You're not just a beast," he whispered. "You're my shield now." Bones didn't move, but one eye opened, and in that eye Cade saw something strange, something that almost looked like loyalty. The jungle had tested him, the beast had tested him, and somehow he passed. The impossible had happened. A human and a monster, side by side, not master and pet, not hunter and prey, but brothers of survival. And together they were heading toward something far more dangerous than wild creatures or alien traps. They were heading toward war. The rain started without warning. Heavy drops fell through the thick canopy, soaking everything within minutes. Cade pulled his jacket tight and looked up at the dark sky. Beside him, Bones walked calmly, unbothered. They had been walking for 2 days now, following the river upstream. Each night, they camped together, and each morning, the beast waited patiently for Cade to wake. Something unspoken had formed between them, not just trust, something deeper, something that came from survival in silent moments shared under firelight. They weren't just moving anymore. They were searching for something. Cade didn't know what exactly, but Bones did, and Cade trusted that. Suddenly, the forest exploded with noise. Screeches echoed from the east, followed by snapping branches and fast-moving shapes in the trees. Bones growled low. Cade crouched behind a log, eyes wide, knife ready. 5 creatures burst into view. Faster than anything Cade had seen, long arms, sharp claws, and glowing green eyes. They didn't stop to think. They charged. Cade raised his knife, but Bones moved first, with a deafening roar. The beast smashed into the attackers like a living wall. It bit down on the first creature and threw it across the river. Another leapt toward Cade, but Bones knocked it aside with a swipe of his bone-plated tail. Cade ducked and rolled, stabbing one in the leg as it passed. It screamed, but before it could strike again, Bones was there. Fast, brutal, unstoppable. Within seconds, the forest was silent again. 4 bodies lay still in the mud. The 5th had fled, wounded and howling. Cade stood slowly, heart racing, body shaking. Bones walked over, covered in blood and breathing hard. He didn't growl, didn't boast. He just looked at Cade. Waiting. "You saved me," Cade whispered. Bones stepped closer, nose twitching. Then he did something unexpected. He lowered his head and touched his forehead to Cade's chest. Just for a second, then stepped back. It was a gesture Cade didn't fully understand, but he felt it, like a warrior's bow or a friend's silent vow. They burned the bodies that night. The flames crackled while rain still dripped through the leaves. Bones sat at the edge of the firelight, staring into the dark trees. Cade sat beside him, sharpening his knife. "You're more than a beast," he said softly. "You're a soldier." Bones looked at him and blinked slowly, then closed his eyes as if accepting the title. Far above in the alien warship, the generals watched the destroyed drone feed in silence. "He survived again," one hissed. "With the beast's help," said another. "That human is changing it." They couldn't deny it anymore. The creature that once killed armies now followed a human. It didn't just follow, it fought for him. "We should have killed him when we had the chance," a cold voice muttered. "It's too late now," another replied. "He's bonded with it." The room filled with whispers and fear. Because if the human had truly tamed the beast of Zuranine, then he had become a threat they didn't know how to face on the planet. Cade woke to find Bones sitting beside him, watching the sunrise. The sky turned gold above the jungle. It was quiet, peaceful. Cade reached over and scratched the beast's thick fur behind its ear. Bones let out a soft sound, almost like a sigh. He didn't pull away. "You're not just protecting me," Cade said. "You've accepted me as one of yours." The thought made him smile and made him worry, because he knew what was coming. The aliens wouldn't let this continue. They'd send a team, maybe a squad, maybe worse. And when they came, they wouldn't just try to kill him, they'd try to take Bones. Cade stood and tightened the straps on his gear. Then he turned to the beast. "We need to be ready," he said. Bones stood tall, bigger than ever in the morning light. His scars caught the sun. His armor glowed like ivory. Together, they walked toward the high cliffs at the edge of the jungle. That's where the signal had last been strong, and that's where the ships would come. The council thought they had sent a man to die, but they had unknowingly built a legend. A human warrior and a monster-turned-friend, and now both were ready for whatever came next. Asterisk. The alien dropship landed with a heavy roar. Dust and leaves flew everywhere, shaking the jungle trees as its metal legs sank into the wet ground. Inside, 10 armored soldiers stood ready, rifles charged, fingers tight on the trigger. Their mission was simple: recover the human's body, or what was left of it. If alive, erase the mistake. If dead, erase the shame. But the jungle was too quiet, too still. As if it already knew they had come too late, the team marched through the thick green. Scanners out, eyes sharp, one soldier whispered, "No signs of life," another muttered. No animal sounds either. Then they saw the first claw mark. Deep, clean, and fresh. A symbol scratched into a stone. The leader raised a fist. Stopping the group, "This isn't random," she said. "He's nearby." But before anyone could speak again, a branch snapped. A shadow moved across the trees. Something large, slow, and heavy, then footsteps, not stomping, not rushing. Just calm, steady steps approaching through the mist. The soldiers turned, weapons raised, and froze. A human walked toward them, his face dirty, his clothes torn, but his eyes sharp. Calm, powerful, it was Cade, and beside him, a beast, twice the size of a soldier, black fur glowing in streaks. Bone armor shining like polished stone. Its red eyes burned, but not with hunger, with control. It didn't growl, it didn't charge, it simply stood there, still and deadly. Cade stopped just 10 feet away. The soldiers stared in disbelief, fingers twitching, hearts pounding, target located. One soldier whispered into his cum. "He's not alone." The captain stepped forward slowly. "Cade," she said. "You're supposed to be dead, Cade." Gave a tired smile. "Yeah, well, I had company." He placed a hand on the beast's thick neck. It didn't flinch. It leaned into him gently. Like a trained war mount, the alien squad looked at each other, confused and afraid. One soldier muttered, "Is he riding it?" "No," another replied, voice shaking. "It's walking beside him." Cade stepped closer. "I know why you're here," he said. "You came to erase a mistake." The captain didn't respond. Her gun slowly lowered. Cade's voice was calm but sharp. "But I'm not your mistake anymore." He looked down at Bones, who sat silently at his side. "She chose me. And now you're the ones in danger." From the trees behind them, more growls began, soft, distant, and growing louder. Eyes appeared in the shadows, dozens. They were not alone. Bones had brought others, or perhaps the jungle had accepted him too. The captain raised her voice, trying to stay strong. "We can bring you in alive," she said. "Give us the beast, and you'll live." Cade didn't move. He looked her dead in the eyes and whispered, "Leave." Bones stood up slowly, tall and terrifying. Its growl shook the leaves. Its eyes locked onto the squad. Not attacking, not yet, but ready. The captain hesitated. She looked around. They were surrounded. The jungle itself had turned against them. She gave a single nod. "Fall back," she ordered. "Now." The soldiers slowly backed away, never turning their backs as the dropship lifted into the sky again. The commander looked out the window. Down below, the human stood like a king, and the monster stood like his guard. Far above, the alien council received the report. Silence filled the chamber. One general slammed the table. "Now he controls the beast." Another whispered, "Worse, he became one of them." Fear crept through every corner of their minds, because they knew what this meant. The one they threw to die had returned alive with a weapon no one could control. And now, he wasn't asking for respect. He was commanding it. They thought he was finished. They thought he'd vanish in the jungle, eaten, broken, forgotten. But now, he was their nightmare. Cade stood on the cliff's edge, looking down at the river that twisted through the jungle. Behind him, Bones rested with eyes half closed. But even sleeping, the beast radiated power. Cade's scars had healed, but his eyes had changed. No longer the same man who'd stepped off that drop pod. He was something else now, not just a survivor. He was bonded, not by chains, not by tech, but by something primal and rare: mutual respect. The jungle no longer attacked him. It welcomed him. Predators gave him space. Even the plants seemed to sense his steps, like the land itself had accepted him. But far above, in the deep chambers of the Galactic Council, Fear grew. The footage had reached every military intelligence screen in the quadrant. A human, walking beside the deadliest beast known to their records. Not controlling it, but walking as its equal. One commander slammed the screen. "He shouldn't be alive," another shook his head. "Worse, he's not just alive, he's dangerous. He's a symbol now," a third said, voice quiet. "To humans, he's a hero. To us, a warning." They tried to hide the truth, but the news spread anyway. Aliens in far systems whispered about him. The human who befriended the monster. The man who returned from a death sentence with death on a leash on the jungle planet. Cade stared at a broken alien drone he had pulled from the mud. He rewired it, sent one short message, not to beg, not to report, just a sentence. "I'm alive, come speak if you dare." 2 days later, a diplomatic shuttle arrived, small and silver. It hovered low over the jungle, then landed gently in a clearing. 3 alien envoys stepped out, dressed in white, nervous eyes scanning the trees. They didn't speak first. They waited, silent and shaking. Then Cade appeared. Bones walked behind him like a shadow. The envoys took a step back without realizing. If Cade noticed, but said nothing, one of them finally spoke. "We come in peace." Cade raised an eyebrow. "Now you want peace. We offer apology and alliance." Cade looked over at Bones, then back at them. "My friend here remembers things differently." One of the envoys almost tripped stepping backward, but Cade held up a hand. "I'm not here for revenge," he said. "I'm here for respect." The envoys nodded quickly. Of course, but understand this," Cade continued. "I'm not alone anymore. If you ever try to harm me or any human like this again." He turned slightly, and Bones let out a low growl that shook the trees. Birds scattered into the sky. The envoy's skin turned pale. Cade stepped forward. "You left me to die," he said quietly, "and now I stand here with something no army of yours could ever control." "That's not a weapon," one envoy whispered. Cade nodded. "No," he said. "It's better." He turned and walked away. Bones followed, and the envoy stood frozen, unsure if they had just witnessed a warning or a declaration. Later that night, under the stars, Cade sat by the fire again. Bones laid beside him, snoring softly, its body warm like a furnace. Cade whispered, "They're scared now." The beast's tail flicked once, as if it agreed. Cade stared up at the sky. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew one thing. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a message to every race, every species, every empire. You can throw a human into the darkest corner of the galaxy. You can leave him to monsters. You can strip him of weapons, allies, hope. But you can't break him. You can't tame him. And sometimes, he tames the monster instead.